And
Hey,
good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the chat session on the This Way Network.
hey.
I'm Nina, your host, and there is my co host, Rodney Allen Rippey. And we've got a guest with us who Rodney's going to introduce because I only just met her, and I think he can probably tell you more about her. Introduce because I only just met her, and I think he can probably tell you more.
Okay, well, we're here this morning. Good morning. And I am Rodney Allen Rippey, and welcome to the This Way Network and the chat session. I had the pleasure of meeting Miss Luba Palm. And Luba, she is a fantastic filmmaker, actress, a lot of things, but she has a whole lot of heart. We welcome her to the chat session here on the This Way Network. And today is going to be a very, very important day because we're talking about a documentary that's very, very close and near and dear to her heart. So, welcome to the chat session, Luba Palm. How are you, Luba?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Nina. I'm really happy to be here because after 4 years of basically silence, I this is my first time I'm breaking the silence. And I'm so glad I'm doing this on the Christian network. I would say that it's not a coincidence because I have been offered to appear on a television show on one of the local news channels, and it
Mm-hmm.
just fell through. So
Mm-hmm.
my first time in 4 years, and I mean it had to happen somehow, or someday. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, the
Well, now,
thing.
Luby, I want to confess. Rodney has told me nothing about your story, so I
Mhm.
know nothing. What is it that you're bringing to us today that you're breaking your silence about?
Uh, well, the story that I was kind of staying away from talking about is the story of my brother, who is
Mhm.
a man who was persecuted, and he was put in prison for 18 years. And he's a fantastic man, very charismatic, very talented, former soccer star, and the chaplain of a Premier League soccer club in Russia, a man that dedicated his whole life to serving children, saving kids from drug and alcohol addiction. And basically, that was his mission, his calling. And he suffered because of that. He was put in jail, he was put in a maximum security prison, accused of a horrible crime, and no efforts that we did. We did everything possible and impossible to save him from his terrible accusation. But the system just I would not say destroy him, but the system tried to destroy him. And
Mm.
currently he's in the maximum security prison. I had to leave Russia because I was so active and fighting for his human rights that I was warned that I will be also put in prison next to him. So I had to
Mm.
stay silent and quiet. And of course, I don't think it's a coincidence meeting Rodney. I mean, I think that there was God's will there. I was just waiting for the right time to talk about it.
Okay, so this is the first time. How long have you been in the States now?
4 years. I came in
For 4 years.
2020, right before COVID, a month before COVID. And of
Oh,
course,
wow.
COVID, everybody was
Mhm.
fearful and scared. But after COVID, I was offered to appear on the show, and it didn't work. So,
Mhm.
And actually, what this show is about, the title and the theme of the show is when things are not as they seem. A lot of times in life, things in life, you can look at something and honestly, in today's society, through technology, through just the manipulation of media and things like that, you can make a very simple situation very, very bad for people. And so these are things and that is why you should always have people in your corner. And of course, Luba's brother has had a throng of people who knew him, people in the community, family members, and everything else. And so I actually have a little clip that I'd like to play, and this will kind of give you a little clue about what's going on. Make sure you take the time, read the subtitles, because I want you to watch this. And this is a little trailer for you, okay?
Настоятель сельского храма в Ленобласти Глеб Грозовский заочно арестован и объявлен в международный розыск.
Обоснованные подозрения или клевета?
Столь скорым, что это навеяло некоторые мысли.
Поручили блестящую карьеру. В 34 года он был назначен сюда около года назад.
Обвиняемый в педофилии духовный наставник Зенита Глеб Грозовский лишен права носить одежду священнослужителя.
Инкриминируемые ему обвинения в педофилии Грозовский отрицает.
Вы признаете свою вину?
Нет, никогда в жизни, ни одному ребенку я не нанес вред. Никогда. Это просто невозможно.
So, Luba, if you could tell right there, you could kind of see that this is a very, very serious thing. You could see all of the major media talking about this thing. This is a global story. You literally could go to Google and you type in your brother's name and it's all over Google. This thing is global headlines. And it's sad to say that he was actually accused of something. And as I talked to you about this, he even had a complete solid alibi. He was not even in the same city. And then boom, they still convicted him. How does something like this happen?
Well, that's what happens when the evil, takes the toll. And I think that what happened to my brother, it wasn't just happening to my brother. That's the thing. There were other people that ended up being in the same situation. So I guess any man, that's what I'm going to say, and it will not be a mistake. This story could be universal because any man, anybody can be accused of doing something that they haven't done. For example, the easiest crime to get put in prison for in Russia is the crime that my brother was accused of, which is first it's pedophilia. I don't know. That's the easiest crime that the person can get accused of. And after we did like a big, huge campaign in defense of my brother, and of course, my mom, it was a shock to her because if you watch the documentary, nobody knew that this was happening to him. Nobody knew because he was on the top of his career. He was a very successful man. He traveled with the team, traveled to Europe in 2008. The Russian team won the European Cup, and he was there. He was there.
And you saying your brother was a very prolific soccer player. So he was very, very famous. And imagine this, you are in the top of the world in your league, you're playing soccer, and someone doesn't like you. These things are very, very serious because if there is an accusation and someone says, we want to knock this person out of the spotlight, we want to create something that would make people question, oh my goodness. And it seems that is exactly what happened to him.
Rodney, he was a soccer player first, but then he had an injury. And after the injury, he decided to dedicate his life to rescuing children and got married and had 2 kids from his own children. And then he adopted 2 children. So he had a beautiful family of 4 children. And that's when he started to be popular because he was the first chaplain in the history of Russia, traveling with the soccer team and educating the players not to cuss, on the game field, like
Wow.
not to do anything like that. So he was kind of like an influencer for the team. And with his influence, the team started winning big. And that's in 2008, the team won the European Cup. And I just have to stress that, yes, his whole life was soccer, but not only that, his whole life was now saving kids, because this is what gave him an opportunity to go to the orphanage and to bring a famous soccer star like Andrei Arshavin, who played for Manchester United at that time. He was a huge star. So he brought Andrei to the kids, and of course he was like their idol. So that was like the doors that were opening up to him to do the ministry. And the ministry was to actually save drug addicted children, because there's so many kids that are suffering from drugs and from alcohol addiction. And the place where he lived, he said, I saw needles, I saw things that like I couldn't just walk by, and I knew that I could do it because I knew that this was my mission in life. And of course, when you do such work, there are other forces that see you as a threat. And some of the things that you saw in the documentary, there is strength in truth. There is a voice of a man that my brother by accident recorded him while he was telling him that he will rot in prison and that nobody will ever know the truth. And when you hear these words, it's chilling. And this is why I actually started doing the documentary, because I knew the truth, but I wanted for the world to see the truth. And of course, I was lucky enough to have an amazing team. I did not put any money out of my pocket. Everything was the efforts that people put in traveling to Israel, doing the documentary, investing their time. I was just there as a I was just there. You know what I mean? Like my main goal was just to make sure that people are not scared to say the truth. That was
Right.
And that was hard to do, because when women who supposedly, their girls were supposedly like victims, when they started to protest against the Russian system, forcing them to tell like, oh, your daughter is a victim. And the mother says, I know my daughter is not a victim, because she would have told me she's a victim. No, she's a victim. You're just covering up. We're going to go into your family. We know you have issues. We're going to take your daughter away. So when these women, the reason why I even started doing documentary is not even to support my brother. The reason why I did this documentary is I wanted to save these girls and to save these mothers that were pressured by the system, and they were afraid to speak. Imagine like when you were like told by the police officer, like, if you don't speak up, we're going to take your daughter away. We're going to take your kids away. So that was my main goal. My main goal was not even helping my brother. I wanted to help these women that you see in the documentary, that they are talking about it. In the beginning of the documentary, you see them.
Actually, and you know what? This is something I would encourage everyone. I'm going to put in the chat this is actually a YouTube video that you can actually see and watch this whole documentary. Take the time. You may, because it is subtitles, but if you watch it, I watched it twice. I watched it the first time just to kind of get the visuals. Then go back and watch it again and read the subtitles. It is very, very powerful, because when you watch this, it's very, very telling. And in life, so many times there have been people who have been accused of things. Some things are, let's be honest. Some things are very, very real. Some things are it actually happened. And then there are some things that could be really, really fabricated. And it's a very, very simple process. And some people have been really, really railroaded in a bad way. And so Luba, you had also said that with so many people talking about this and people standing up for your brother and speaking about this, yet their actual valid, uh, you know, credibility, his credibility was not even taken into consideration, and all of the great work that he had done, especially working with the orphans, and when you start working on turning around things about drugs and things like that, you get some enemies really quick.
Yes, well, it's because the Russian government dedicates a certain amount of funds to the this rehab business. So it is a business for a lot of people. It's a business, and it's not good to when you have someone who is trying to cut into the business, because for them it's just business. For my brother, it was just the mission, and he wanted to do rehabs free of charge. You know what I mean? Like free. So when you have somebody who is trying to do the rehab and gain benefits and from the parents, you know how expensive it is. Even in America, it's extremely expensive. I know how much it costs for 1 day of a person in a rehab. It's crazy. So when my brother's idea was to make it as inexpensive as possible, possibly even free, using his connections, using the fact that now the government gave him a piece of land that he was planning to build his rehab. And that's when things started to get very dirty. From what I know, originally, when they saw that they cannot stop him, they actually ordered to get him murdered. But because of his popularity, because of his connections, and they were kind of afraid, because it would be too loud to murder somebody. So instead of murdering him, they decided to actually do it quietly. That's why they said nobody will know the truth. And this is exactly why my movie is called There Is Strength in Truth, because the goal was just that everybody keeps quiet. People are quiet. Knows, we put him in prison very, very silently. This is why, even for me, talking about it, it's kind of, again, going against the system, which I was for many, many years. But then, I'm in the United States now, and it's been 4 years, and I'm hoping that, I'm here.
Luba, something that you shared with me that was so powerful, and it was really chilling to even think about what you had shared about your mom. You had said in Russia, if you were to speak out about certain things like that, if you had a group of people and everybody got together and started saying no, 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 that is a crime. But if one person stands and holds a sign, and like you said that your mother every day would go and hold a sign every day and hold a sign and say, my son is innocent, please help us, please help us, please help us. And no one would bother her. She could stand there on the street corner every day alone, holding that sign as a mother fighting for her son.
I wish you could show that picture of her standing.
We eventually we'll have to come back and maybe have a follow-up, because the pictures and things that you shared of your mom, and it was, and it kind of broke my heart, because that your mom, that's her baby. She's going to do everything she can to help her child, but at the same time, especially when he had a solid alibi that they just kind of looked the other way for in the court. And the next thing was, you said your mom passed away, and so you had to kind of pick up that torch.
Yes, when my mom died in 2016, after my brother was extradited back to Russia from Israel, that's when I felt like I lost every ground to stand on. I was so devastated and I was so sad. I was almost depressed. But I knew that I had to keep going. I had to keep going somehow. And I just, you know what, I was so like, it was like the ground was taken away from me. That's how I felt. Because my mom and we were like a team, we were like a fighting team. My mom actually my mom is a writer. And so what she would do is she would go to different markets, and she would sell her books, and people would give her money, and they would give her money to help support the campaign, support the fight, because we had to pay a lot of money to the attorneys. My brother had an attorney in Israel while he was in Israel, and was hoping, because of my brother's like Jewish roots, that Israel would actually fight for justice. I mean, support justice. But it was a shock to all of us to see that he was extradited, that Israel decided to wash their hands and say, like, we don't want him. We don't care if he dies in prison. We don't care, But because of the work that we did, our team, our supporters, our people, it was impossible to keep it quiet. So to kill him in prison now would be very, very difficult, because now he became this huge person, because he was public. But the worst thing, what they wanted to do, his enemies, they wanted to announce the news on every Russian television network, and that's what they did. But because they went public, what was our choice? Our choice was to fight it in the public realm. And because, I studied journalism, and I always wanted to be a journalist, but I never had an opportunity to do it. And there I knew that God is using me, to do this, because I started going, no television network wanted to talk to me, because he was blacklisted suddenly. He was blacklisted because the people that accused him, they had influence, they owned the television networks. So there was nothing I could even say on camera. Or because all the news would say, he's a pedophile, blah, blah, blah. And there was nothing, there was nothing. I couldn't say that, I have the witnesses. The crime was never established,
In Luba, as you explained to me, it was as simple as a photograph that, and this was, and the crazy thing about this is it would be different if there were some really, just horrific images or of something like that with your brother. But it was something as simple as he was somewhere and
you're sitting, right? And some girl runs to you, hugs you, sits on your lap, and somebody comes up and clicks a picture. There, you're guilty. And the only thing that they needed is the written testimonies from the mothers, because the girls were underage. So, of course, the mothers would sign the testimony saying that my girl was molested by such and such. Father Gleb Grozovsky is a pedophile. My daughter was molested. So because of that, the fact of the they had to check, right? They had to investigate. So when they did take the girls into the gynecologist, when they did investigation, when the psychologists talked to the girls, the conclusion in court was the girls are lying. These girls are lying. They were untouched. There was nothing done to them. The gynecologist expert opinion was concluded there was nothing. And the psychologist's opinion concluded the girls are lying. And this is what our defense brought in court. But despite all of the defense, despite the doctors of psychology watching and reading the testimonies. Despite that, the judge announced him guilty of a sexual crime and put him in the maximum security prison, which means he's not allowed phone calls, maybe once a month. He's kept in the most rigid conditions. They don't get, you don't understand Russian prisons. It's just like, you just don't understand Russian prisons. It's not like somebody can just visit you. You can't. And also the food, they have a shop, but you can never get the food there. And the only food they have is rotten potatoes. That's all they have. So physically, and when I tried to get my brother the vitamins, the prison will not allow for him to even get the vitamins that he needs. So you have to do something. You have to pay the bribes. You have to, we never paid any. We never paid any bribes to get vitamins to my brother. It was just like the prison once a year, I guess by luck, a year ago, they allowed the vitamins and my brother was extremely happy. He called me, he said, I'm so happy.
Luba, you also said that even there, your brother is winning souls over and continuing to make a difference, even in prison. And I mean, it's almost like a biblical story that's really, really playing out the fact that, and you really see that something's just not right when all of the evidence, it was just like how they persecuted Jesus. It was just like there was no real evidence, but people say, well, there's got to be something. And people just like they cooked up the whole story of our Savior. And I just think that
it's very interesting that you're saying this, because throughout the story of persecution of my brother, and my brother became a priest, Russian Orthodox priest, after after he was no longer like a soccer player, right? So after that, he became a priest. And when I watched his story and everything that was happening in his story, I found so many parallels to the story of Jesus. And this is why God gave me this mission to create a TV series called Love Over Evil, is because I have witnessed the evil. I have witnessed the betrayal of his closest friends. I have witnessed people lying and the things, the coincidences. Like in the story of Jesus, there was Mary who repented, Mary the Magdalene. And in this story, that was exactly the same story. There was this woman, and you know how Jesus was followed by women? Women were the strongest supporters in my brother's case. They were the one that was traveling to courts. They were the ones that were holding signs. They were the ones that were fighting for the truth. And this woman, Mary Magdalene, she repented. And we had exactly to the T the same story. There was this woman that repented, and now she's in a monastery and she supported my brother. It's like so many parallels that were happening that I think I wrote 16 parallels of like to the story of what happening to my brother with the story of like what Christ went through. Accused of nothing,
Everyone, I just have to say, I want to make sure that we let everyone know this is Luba Palm. She's an actress, filmmaker, but she's advocating for her brother, a huge, huge story that you really can dig into. This is something that, and I want to recognize all of the people. So I want to say good morning to Carrie, Jacqueline. Thank you, Jacqueline, for your comments. And there are different people. No doubt there's always, great guests on, and we appreciate everybody being on. And we're just looking at some of the comments, and Carrie says, good morning, Luba. And DeAndre, all countries need their laws. Look at to make their countries better. place to live. God bless the human race. Yeah, he says there needs to be better laws and things out there. Appreciate that, DeAndre. And again, in the link, EU, thank you. And definitely so much. And Elvira, thank you. Good morning. And so this show is, again, when things are not what they seem. And this is a real true exclusive on the This Way Network. I'm honored to be able to have Luba Palm on. And so she actually is an advocate for her brother, but she actually had a team of people who put together a very, very prolific documentary in his defense. And I mean, you have to watch this thing. It's really, really bone chilling to think that something like this could happen to a major personality, a major person in the community. And how many times have you thought and seen things that just did not make sense? And again, you know, this is not in America. It's a little bit different around the world. Things can happen, and it can happen right here in America, where you have power and influence, and then you have things that start. It's a machine. And so if bad news is put out, and then it gets out there and it starts being repeated over and over and over again, just like the stories were about your brother, people start going, well, everybody's reporting on this. This has to be true. Yes. Not necessarily. And it's just like you can get one story and just repeat it over and over. Go ahead, Nina.
I'm sorry. I've been listening to this, and I think I've been piecing things together, but I want to make sure I have the story right. And so I want to go through it, if you wouldn't mind, kind of chronologically, so that to help me and our viewers understand exactly what happened and exactly what's going on right now. So your brother was a soccer star. Then he suffers an injury. And then he starts mentoring other youth in soccer, becomes a chaplain for the team. Is that correct? Is that how that happened?
No, he was the chaplain for the soccer league club, for the professional soccer club, for the professional football players. But he becomes, because he's very active, he has his ministry, which is working with children. And so he is invited to go to a camp, to travel. And he was invited, he declined. But the people who invited them convinced him to go. And in fact, they paid for the tickets for all of his family to fly to Greece. And also, they even paid for my son. At that time, he was a young kid. You know, he flew to Greece with my brother. And so the whole family travels to Greece. And this is where they set it up. It was one of the episodes. Right. They set it up to where, like, he's guilty, he's coming to the children, and they created a story like he's with his family in one hotel, and at night he leaves his hotel and he goes to the hotel where the kids are, and he climbs the rope, like in a movie. He's climbing on the second floor, even though there's security, even though there's like people around,
All right, let's back up just a minute, because I really want to understand where all of this is coming from. So you said that your brother had started a ministry for young people. So, and that ministry was doing what exactly?
The ministry was dedicated to educating children on the God's word, on teaching them about they're teenagers. So he was talking about being pure, being godlike, being active members of their community, just doing the things. He was like a father figure to the kids that were needing his, like those who needed his
So his ministry was directed at.
But it was also, hold on, Nita, but it was also mentorship, but it was also substance abuse. He was working to help people who were dealing with substance abuse. And that's where problems become. Go ahead.
He traveled to the United States to do that. He attended AA meetings. in Israel, in the United States. He was invited even internationally to.
Okay, I think this is one place I'm getting a little confused. So I thought your brother, his ministry was centered there in Russia, but you're saying he was actually in Israel.
He traveled. He was invited as a guest speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he ended up in Israel, because he was invited as a guest speaker. It was a planned event that he had to attend.
Okay. So, but this was not unusual for him to be traveling before this, because he was invited different places.
Yeah.
Okay. And was his mentorship of youth and his work with kids who were caught in drug addiction and so forth, was that taking place mostly in Israel or mostly in Russia?
Mostly in Russia. Mostly in Russia.
Okay. Okay, so he was mostly in Russia, but he's invited other places to go do these things. But his ministry becomes a threat to, you were talking about that there were entities that the Russian government subsidizes drug addiction rehabilitation. So now it seems to me on the surface, and I'm not challenging your story at all. Please understand that. I'm trying to understand your story. It seems to me that the Russian government, if they are helping subsidize rehabilitation for young people, that when somebody else comes along and they're saying, oh, I'd like to help rehabilitate these kids and do it for free, that the government will be like, yeah, go right ahead, because that would mean less money that we have to put out. But that's not the case. Is it actually that the government is giving money to private entities, and those private entities were feeling threatened because now, if there's less need, we won't get as much money?
Yeah,
how did that work? Was it the government and the private entities together that were bringing this pressure down on your brother, or finding this a threat?
This is a very good question, and I can see like how analytical you are.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like I said, I'm trying to understand it thoroughly. So, and I think our viewers would appreciate being able to understand it thoroughly too.
This is a very good question. Actually, the government, what it does, it allocates funds towards like various funds, and particularly the Russian Orthodox Church is one of the recipients of these grants. So the Russian Orthodox Church has the biggest influence in Russia. It's like one of the major churches in Russia, and so they have the major influence. And this is why when the funds are allocated, they're going through certain church funds. And so it's a private fund, right? Owned by the person who is now responsible for the rehab, for building the rehab, and for receiving these government grants. So the more money they receive, the less they actually do, because on the surface, let's say there is a rehab, they received plenty of money, but you have 15 people that's all doing the rehab. So it's a formality.
Right. So it's kind of like a front, because they're actually keeping the most of the money and putting it in their own pocket.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So this corruption, and now what we're seeing here is not just corruption with the Russian government, but also in the Russian Orthodox Church, which is a very sad thing to hear. So they come against one of their own because of what he's doing. Did he know things? Was he exposing the corruption?
He just decided to do it his way. He just decided to be the influence and do it the right way, to allow a lot of people to do it free of charge, to allow these kids, to allow these parents to actually get help. And when you said that their own, it's in the story of Jesus, it's their own betrayed Jesus. So here it's the same. It's one of his brothers, one of his servants in the church, who had this thought. You know how like Judas betrayed Christ? This was
right.
the thing.
And the Pharisees who came
Yeah.
against him and were always looking for occasion to accuse him.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nina, one thing that that we just got to keep on the front side of this thing is money and intimidation has a huge influence on some people, and they could literally take a situation. I know of another situation where someone heavy bribes turned a whole crew of people against a person, and literally, I have a friend that there was a situation that happened. The lady was in court. She had 15 people with her who were all her confidants, all her people. They were standing next to her in court. And when the judge said, can you say something in response to her? They turned on her and was standing right next to her. They say she did everything that she's saying was not true. And she had a nervous breakdown. She turned to these people and all of them chimed in the same thing. And when she looked across at her defendant or her opposing side, the guy had this look in his eye and he smiled. So he had paid, and he had a lot of money, and he paid everyone off. They were literally standing next to her in court. So when it comes down to turning people and manipulating people, you don't know it, because it could be not only a financial gain, it could be a threat.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because it's exactly what happened with my brother. The people that defended him most and were shouting, yeah, innocent everywhere, supporting him, all of a sudden, one of them just, announces that she wrote a book that he is a pedophile, even though she spent 2 years traveling, defending him, going to the island of Kos in Greece, showing that he is innocent, speaking everywhere, speaking out. And I found out that she was paid money to buy her own apartment, which she really wanted, and suddenly she wrote a book saying that he is now guilty, and you see her in the movie. Her name is Lydia. She's a camp director. You see her in the documentary. She's saying that they have to prove that he is guilty. That's her. She was a camp director, and she was saying that he is absolutely innocent. And one day, just like that, everything just changed,
So all of this, his conviction really came about because of the testimony, of witnesses who, there seems to be a lot of evidence, were corrupted by money, who were paid off to say the things they did. Did they have any material evidence at all, aside from what you were saying, that one picture, which seems to have been staged and was a setup?
The material evidence is the gynecologist's and evaluations and psychology.
That was actually in his favor.
That were in his favor, saying that he's not guilty, that there's no proof. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if we had in court 18 witnesses saying that at the time when he was, there, it's impossible. All the children, all the guards, everybody. I flew personally to the island of Kos, because they're talking about 2 episodes. One on the island of Kos and another one is in Russia. So they're talking about 2 episodes because they want to create him as a pedophile maniac, So I flew personally to the island of Kos, and I talked to the man who was the owner of the hotel where the kids stayed. And he said, every night we have a security guard right here. We would have suspected. If somebody was climbing up the rope, if somebody was going through, we would have suspected. And even if he went to the girls' rooms, how did he get out? He would have been caught then. That's the island of Kos. And then in Russia, they had these, it's a funny way, the houses were set up to look at each other, paper thin walls, kids watching, everybody was on guard. Everybody, the teachers were there during the daylight. They're saying during daylight he went to the girl's house. But what about the teachers? They were always there. They would have seen. So even though everybody says it did not happen, it's impossible, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say. When the machine is working, the machine is working.
Yeah. So they actually, I don't even want to use the word lured, because it makes it sound like, oh, he was, because he had actually said, I don't want to go, or I'm not going. But then they invited the whole family and they do all of this stuff to get him there so that they can set him up and accuse him. Once he's been accused, is he arrested there on the island?
No, because once he got accused, nothing was happening because they were kind of arranging the things. He went back, some time passed, 2-3 months, and then one of the girls supposedly remembered that she was molested 2-3 months later. So
it took time. It took time for them to talk to all the witnesses and
to arrange all of that, to do
get it all together.
And I mean,
all right. And in the meantime, in the meantime, has he gone back to Russia? I remembered you said something about him being extradited from Israel. How was it he got to Israel?
He had a planned conference that he was supposed to go to. And when he left Russia, he was not a criminal at that time. He was just a witness in the case. A witness in the case of some molestation. And then he goes to Israel, and that's when they do it. They announce him a criminal and say that he ran away from Russia, even though he was not even accused at that time. So they say all over the Russian networks that he's a pedophile runaway priest, and if he wasn't a pedophile, then why would he leave? And so makes sense, right? Like, if you have nothing to hide, why are you hiding? But he had
it actually was something that was already planned, and he was and not for that reason.
They didn't plan for him to go to Israel. That was his attorney that advised to him, because she said that if you stay tomorrow, when you come as a witness, you will never go out of this room and nobody will ever know. Like, she just advised for him to go. She said, you were supposed to go, just go earlier. He was supposed to travel anyway. His plan was to travel to Israel. So what he did is he got an official letter from the church saying that he's gonna go earlier. So he got a permit. Basically, he can't just travel without a permission.
Wow.
So he got the official letter saying that, you can go. He went, and that's when he was announced. That's when he was announced all over the Russian. It was like November 6, 2013. I come to the kitchen with my mom. My mom is cutting bread. We turn on the TV, and my mom just drops the knife right there. Like, she just drops the knife. I'm thinking, I see my brother, runaway pedophile priest. I look at this and I'm thinking, is this a joke? Like is this a joke? What is this? And then my other family comes in, and everybody is like, what's going on here? And that's when he was in Israel. They said that now he's wanted by Interpol because he's a criminal. But Israel didn't want to arrest him because sexual crime is only a sexual crime when it's something serious. Like, if he was a rapist, that's one thing. So what they did is they could not arrest him. Israel did not want to arrest him, no matter what they did. My brother was free for a year. 3 year he was in Israel. He didn't even hide. The Russian television network flew to Israel and recorded an interview, an amazing show with him. Amazing show that was shown all over Russia. And so he was giving interviews. He was not hiding. But they only were able to arrest him when Russia sort of changed his accusation from sexual molestation to rape. So they artificially changed it to set up the machine. They couldn't bring him back. All his friends, supposed friends, were bribed to go to Israel and bring him back. But my mom said, "No, son, don't come yet. Don't come. Stay there." And he listened to my mom. He listened and he stayed. And because of that, they couldn't bring him back, but they needed him to be arrested and extradited. So what they did is they changed his sentence. And of course, with the influence that they had, they contacted the Israeli police, the Israeli investigation. They changed his accusation without even knowing it. And when he became arrested, that's a rapist, supposedly. That's when he was finally arrested in Israel. And he spent he spent time in the worst prison in Israel. It's called Shata prison, and it's with Arabic terrorists. They tried to kill him there, in prison in Israel. Thank God he survived. He's a very strong man.
Do you think
we should ask that everybody keep him in your prayers and things, because sadly this could happen to just about anybody. You know, you could be accused falsely of something, and you know you are innocent until proven guilty. But in many times in the public opinion, when you have a machine, when you have a spin machine that starts running, and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know who's funding it, it's hard to, you have to have some very, very prolific people fighting just as much on your side to be able to silence this type of information. So, I mean, you're thinking
and
about
Rodney, let me add, Rodney, that the presumption of innocence is not a standard everywhere like it is here in the United States. So that makes it even more challenging.
And we have
you're
problems
in other places that they presume your guilt.
Right,
already.
and we have problems with that right here too. Continue,
We do,
yeah.
and that makes the corruption even worse. Yuba, do you believe that the Israeli government was also part of this corruption? Was someone there bribed to?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
So,
even when my brother was there, they tried to pay $50,000 to one of the families that they would say that my brother molested their daughters too when he was in Israel. And they actually found a family. One family said no, and we took their testimony. She said they were offered $50,000. And another family said yes. And the family that accepted him, that loved him, all of a sudden they turned against him, and they said, oh, he was there because $50,000 is a lot of money, right? So especially for Israel. And they took it. They took the money. They started the criminal case in Israel for my brother, but they could not proceed. There was no harsh evidence.
no evidence. Yeah.
In Israel, it did not work. It just didn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think the courts are a little different in Israel, although it's still possible to bribe your way through any place.
They closed
I think.
the case. They stopped. They discovered no evidence, and they just we're just gonna close
Right.
it.
Right. There may be more checks and balances in the
Yeah.
court system there. So this happened what year? What year was your brother arrested?
He was arrested in 2014. So
2014, and was tried when?
he had some trials in Israel, a few trials. I flew over there. We had an attorney. And then he was finally tried in 2017. He was sentenced in Russia. We had a trial in January of 2017.
So he's been
Nina,
in prison in Russia ever since.
Nina, this fight has been going on for years.
Yes.
And I mean, it took like 4 years to even get that. And I just thought, go ahead, huh?
The thing is, I dedicated from 2013 to 2017. I dedicated all of these years to the fight for justice. That was my main work. That was my main assignment, my main task, to gather crowds, to gather the influential people. And just imagine this, you're coming to court and you're not allowed to be during the court session. Like, you're not allowed in the room because it's confidential, because the kids were underage. So there's nothing you can do. So what we used to do is, like, imagine 200, 300 people arriving to court and surrounding the court. And what are they going to do? They try to, like, people are not doing anything. They're just there. But it created pressure for them. It created doubt. It was very uncomfortable. And of course, the main figure in this fight was me, who was trying to carry on, this movement. And they did not like that. They did not. They had the whole team of people who was saying that I am a thief. I'm taking this money to gain personal influence, publicity. I am I'm living like a lifestyle that like, basically bullshit, and they had the whole team of people that was set up to destroy my name in the media, so
so well, it's not just your brother they're bringing down. They're trying to bring down anyone else who can prove his innocence or is behind him. They're trying to discredit everyone.
They're trying to put my sister in prison too. They initiated a fake crime against my sister, but thankfully we had a good lawyer that acted fast and the case was dismissed. But they wanted to put my sister, incriminate my sister as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So what can our viewers do? What can our viewers do now to help?
I think that the most important thing, of course, I ask everyone to pray for Father Gleb. He still has until 2018. In 2018, he will be released. He is not allowed to be released earlier.
2028.
18, I said 18, 28.
Yeah.
So we still have some time. So pray for Father Gleb. That's the main thing.
An early release, as he deserves.
But
have you been able to visit him at all, like say in the last year?
No. Last time I saw him was before I came to the States. I saw him in 2020. I visited him. Yeah.
So in 2020, that's the last time you've actually been able to lay eyes on him.
No, I saw him before. I came to Israel. I saw him through the glass, I saw him through the glass in Russia too. In 2017, I came a few times.
Yeah, but I'm saying the last time you were able to see him, actually lay eyes on him, was in 2020. Right. So you haven't seen him in the last 4 years. Are you able to get phone calls, letters from him?
I
have any communication with him at all?
Yeah, sometimes he's allowed to call, and I have this app installed on my phone. A lot of times it doesn't work, but sometimes he actually manages to get through. Wow. So it maybe happens like once every 2 months I get a phone call, something like that.
Okay. All right. So do you know what his status is, I guess, as far as his frame of mind, his health? You know, how's he doing right now?
He's a strong man. He's witnessing. He is changing lives in prison. He is doing God's work. Because the people that he is with, they're serial killers. They're murder. Like they're really like serious criminals. And he is the one that's witnessing to the criminals. And he's the one that's serving. There's a little church on this prison territory, and he's able to spend a lot of time in church. He's writing his own book. His book is taking him years. He's writing about everything and his experience, so that should be helpful. And as far as his health, I mean, he's all right, I guess. I mean, he's that's the strength of mind, the strength of God that's keeping him well. And I think that the prayers of all the people that are praying for him right as well.
Yes. I think we can give thanks for the fact that he is of such a strong constitution and a strong mind, but also because God is using him even in these situations, like Joseph. In when Joseph was cast into prison falsely accused, Joseph brought light to the others in the prison, and even helped prosper his those who were his keepers in the prison. The guards helped them prosper, and so that by the time God brings him out, God actually elevates him, because he has kept himself and stayed faithful to his God. So, and that's what I'm praying for your brother. Yes, and I agree with you. Motor Gospel is saying, for much of the mainstream media, Trump is presumed guilty even after being proven innocent. For much of the mainstream media, Biden is presumed innocent even after being proven guilty. Walter Cronkite is dead, and that's true. That we're seeing this kind of corruption in so many different places. And even when someone has been proven guilty, yet the rest of the world acts like, oh, no, nothing happened. And yet when someone else has been proven innocent, the rest of the world is still accusing him, like what is going on with your brother. So, but God will bring him out and will elevate him to a level of authority and righteousness that we could not even imagine, because we don't have the imagination for it. But God will do it, because God sees and he elevates the righteous.
Amen. And if you allow me, I don't know what time it is, but if you allow me to say like a final conclude, like you asked me what people can do, and my main goal and the reason why I actually came to Hollywood is because I wanted to, because there's nothing more that I can do in Russia. God gave me like a calling to turn this into a TV series, to turn the story into a TV series, which is going to be called Love Over Evil. And the reason why it's called Love Over Evil is because we have the hope that love will prevail, truth will prevail, and God will prevail, because God is love. And so this name, Love Over Evil, is literally kind of like my mission, my thought, my idea. And so it's a work title. I don't know what it's going to be called at the end, but right now it's kind of aligns with my faith. That love, my name means love too. Lyubov is a word for love in the Russian language. So it's not me over evil, but it's God.
Right.
There you go.
I get that. So do you have a website or something that our viewers could go and help support what you're doing?
Well, first of all, I have a YouTube channel called There Is Strength in Truth, but it's in Russian. So you see, because after I left Russia and my brother said that do not do anything, I was very, very quiet about it. So like I said, I did not do anything except for I wrote a script, and currently planning to find the investors to finance me going and actually doing the movie, but it's going to be a short. So the only thing that I can say, and there's I can put a link here in the description for people to see there's Strength and Truth, and I can put another movie, Save the Children, which is another documentary, if somebody wants to know more about who the character of my brother is, because it's a very interesting story. It's like more a personal movie. And what I can do is I can also put a link, or maybe you could put a link to link people to Instagram, to my profile and the profile of the movie Love Over Evil series. That's what it's called on this Instagram. Love Over Evil series.
Love Over Evil series. Okay. We'll make sure that are you searching for that, Nina?
I don't have very many subscribers. I think it's only 100. If we can raise that number, it would be awesome, because that will give me more opportunities to attract the investors, because more credibility. In other words, the hardest thing is in the industry is like, who are you? Where are you from? Like, and thank you guys for doing this for me, because it gives me more credibility. It gives me my story. It gives it wings. You give wings to the story, to the series. And that's what you're doing. And may God bless you for your hard work and for everything that you're doing. And I hope your network really grows big, expands. You are able to invite more and more people with fantastic stories,
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being on. We really do, Luba, and God bless you, and continue to strengthen you and your brother. And we're honored to be able to have you on and have such a prolific story. Again, I'm going to put in the chat one more final time. If you want to go to YouTube, just look at in the chat. You can see there's a YouTube channel. There you go. You can actually highlight that, copy it, and please go and watch this incredible documentary that was put together. And may we all be encouraged and be aware, and we wish you all the best. We really do. Thank you, Elvira, for that. God bless you. God is love. Amen. All right. And so, Nina, everybody, thank you for hanging in there with us. Again, I'm Rodney Allen Rippey. You've been watching the chat session here on the This Way Network. And Nina, I'm going to let you close it out.
Okay, Rodney, let me thank you for bringing Liuba on. Liuba, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for watching us on the This Way Network. And I hope you will go and check out the documentary and the series and start praying right now. And everyone, be of good courage, because God is with us and we are not alone. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.